The story I'm going to tell you next is what happened a few years ago to a former employee of the Chacarita cemetery. What happened to me that day, I remember it as if it were today. Many years have passed, 11 to be exact, and I can't erase anything that happened to me that time. At that time, I was financially bad. They had kicked me out of the kiosk where I worked, and I couldn't find a job anywhere. Thanks to a friend, I was able to start a job that I never thought I would have until that day. It was to go work at the Chacarita cemetery. It's hard when you start. You're always surrounded by death, sad people, and a heavy energy. But over time, like everything, you get used to it. You also get used to those strange things that happen inside. Shadows, noises, sounds, things that fall. There comes a time when you take it as something normal. Mind you, there are people who never see or feel anything. I personally believe in everything I see. And believe me, I saw a lot of things there. The cemetery at that time closed at 5 in the afternoon. So what was normally done was to go around a bit earlier, around 4:30, to notify the people who were still inside that the cemetery was about to close. That way we made sure that no one was left inside. That Tuesday, it was my turn to go on the left side, let's say to position myself parallel to Jorge Newberry Street. At the start of the round, I found several people to whom I gave the notice. The cemetery is huge, so it's better to give notice in advance. This way, people can slowly walk to the entrance and leave. There are streets inside. It's like a city, but basically of the dead. I was going along diagonal 117, and then I was going to turn onto 103. I don't really remember the section number, to be honest. As I turn to take the 103, I see down 14th Street, which goes to the back, a guy sitting on one of the benches. I would have him, I don't know, I estimate about 100 meters away. So, I decide to go there to give him notice. In the cemetery, most people are distracted and lose track of time. It's primarily due to the sadness felt when bidding farewell or visiting a loved one. That's why we have to warn people, otherwise they stay inside. I was getting closer, little by little. I crossed a lady who just greeted me and told me, before I could say anything, that she was already leaving, that my partner had already warned her a while ago. I keep walking until I get in front of this man. He was sitting on a bench, with his elbows resting on his knees, leaning forward and with his head looking at the ground. I greet him with a, "Good afternoon, sir. I wanted to let you know that the cemetery is closing in a few minutes." And I say to him, "Sir, is everything okay?" At that moment he raised his head and I say to him, "Sir, is everything okay?" At that moment he looked up and stared at me. His eyes were full of tears. He immediately looks back at the floor and starts crying uncontrollably. I approached him, placed my hand on his shoulder and sat beside him. I told him, "Hey man, everything is going to get better. Can I help you with anything?" "What is your name?" He turned his head towards me and stared at me intently. The truth is that it's very difficult to explain what I felt at that moment. I saw so much sadness in that look that I could feel inside me what he was going through. It was a horrible, heavy feeling. His eyes were flooded with tears. I have no solution, and at that moment, he pointed me towards. There's no solution. And at that moment, he pointed me towards his right side. A few meters away, there was a grave that said Franco. That's my son, you know? And he left me. And I don't know how to go on. Everything is over. I don't know what to do anymore. I spoke with him for 2 more minutes trying to calm him down. And I noticed that at one point he even struggled to breathe. I told him to wait, that I was going to bring him some water. We, more than anything, for the months of intense heat, have a small cooler in a little room where we keep tools to have fresh water. It was close, I estimate about 50 meters. I went there, found the water bottle, and returned to Adrian. But my surprise was upon arrival. He was not there. I looked for him on the street, I didn't see him. I went up to 103 and nothing, he had left. I felt bad because I was really moved by that man. He had so much anguish that he could do anything. Anyway, I couldn't do anything else. So I went again to put the water in the fridge and continued my tour until it was time to leave. And on Friday, something happened to me that finally closed what had happened to me that Tuesday. I was coming back from section 12 after doing some work at the crematorium. I never used to take 14th Street, but that day I don't know why I took it. I was reaching the place where I had that encounter with that man, and I see right on the grave he had pointed out to me a lady. She was big. Honestly, I wouldn't know her age. Seeing her, I decided to approach, mostly to ask her how Adrian was, of course, if she knew him. "Good afternoon," I said. She looked at me surprised then. I approached even more to be able to talk to her. I told her what happened, that I had been talking with Adrian, that he was very sad about the loss of his son, and that I was worried he might do something crazy when he was alone. I told her that I wanted to help him, but it wasn't possible. The lady was looking at me surprised, and she even silently shed some tears. When I finished speaking, she first looked at the grave and then turned her gaze back to me. It gives me chills just to tell it. I will never forget what happened at that moment. "Dear, Franquito is my grandson, you know?" And he pointed me to the grave. "And Adrian is my son." Your words leave me speechless. Adrian died on the same day and in the same West as Franco, a month and a half ago. He turned to his right and revealed that next to Franco's grave, there was another tombstone that said Adriana Costa. If it's your first time on the channel or you haven't done it yet, I ask you please, if you can subscribe and like it. It's very important for the channel to grow.